So this can be really fun. I'd like to wish everybody a happy Halloween, and we are here to talk about the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery. And this is called Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, which is a great title, I think. And it's very Shakespearean in feel.
Yeah, it has an original series feel that appeals to me.
Yeah. So, Tom is here, and we are here to talk about this episode. And I thought I've been a big fan of the show in general. I thought this episode was amazing. I loved this episode. It was so entertaining. It was so well written. It was so well acted. I totally, really enjoyed it. So, I don't know. What did you think of this episode?
I'm impressed. I enjoyed it pretty thoroughly as well, but I'm impressed with how dense it is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's so much going on in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And even though there's repetition, which is necessary when Star Trek does this kind of episode where they're repeating time.
Mm-hmm.
In spite of that, they really pack in the content here.
Yeah, they really did. There's a lot going on. And it was just so fun, but it had heart to it. I loved this so much. And so is this a pretty common thing in Star Trek, this repeating time?
They've done it, and I want to say 2 to 3 other times throughout the series, in to some degree or another. Enterprise did it a little, not through the whole episode. The biggest example, though, is a Next Generation episode where the Enterprise has a collision with another ship, and the ship explodes, and they keep repeating that the same several hours as a result of the explosion. And that's an interesting one if people want to go back and do their homework. I can't remember the name of the episode. But it's look up Star Trek: The Next Generation time loop. Google that, and you'll find it.
Okay, great. I love this. Is a pretty popular sort of trope in movies that we've seen, like 3 or 4 different movies recently that have this kind of Groundhog Day kind of theme to it, and I almost always enjoy it. I almost always think it's fun, and this has been by far the most universally accepted and praised episode of the season. Even Mr. Grumpy Pants over at Forbes, who was so hard on last week's episode, he actually called it a masterpiece. And he said, if you haven't been watching Star Trek Discovery, this episode alone may be worth the journey.
Wow.
So, there you go. So let's dive in. So we find out at the very beginning that there's this time loop, basically, and it starts out the time loop with this party on the ship, and it was sort of almost reminded me of sort of like a 90s era kind of rave type situation, sort of looking like it was with the fluorescent colors and and it was really fun, and you get this great sense of how sort of socially awkward and uncomfortable Burnham is, which I don't think that we've necessarily completely gotten that part of her personality fleshed out as far as her social interactions, because she's usually in some kind of leadership position, which I think gives her a certain degree of confidence that she doesn't have in like small talk.
Or that's what she's used to anyway.
Yeah. And so you really see that kind of Vulcan, I think, side of her in this party kind of situation, that she's just this awkward, kind of doesn't know kind of what to say. And I thought that was really good and well acted by the actors. And so what did you think of this? And she's kind of trying to admit that she has this crush on Ash, but she doesn't know what to say, and so that's sort of the initial that part of the story setup.
Yeah, I felt like this episode was kind of taking a break from the hard-driving plot of the season, right? Since we're looking at an overarching story like this, I'm pleasantly surprised that they're still working in some episodes that have an episodic feel, where like they stand alone on their own merits, and you don't have to understand every detail of the other episodes to get it.
True, that's a good point.
This would be a great episode to introduce to someone, like if someone was coming in cold and like, I've never seen Star Trek, I don't know if I'd even like it, what do you recommend? I think I might give them this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would do the same. Yeah, it's just less overwhelming than some of the others. It's just a little bit more fun, but it has all these great elements. And so yeah, I agree with you there. And I think that Ash and Burnham have good chemistry together. I think that you feel it. It's just one of those intangibles that I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes from here, as far as their relationship. But I enjoyed seeing it evolve through each of the time loops. Seeing,
Indeed, yeah. They that goes to my point earlier about how dense it was. They moved that relationship forward several yards really quick,
mm-hmm.
and in a way that actually felt fairly natural.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah.
It was just little bit by little bit each time, and you could see how she would be gaining sort of confidence with each sort of try at it.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
So that was fun, and we get where Stamets is the one who doesn't have the time loop. Because he has the tardigrade in him. He is like immune basically from the time loop. And I thought that Anthony Rapp was great in this. I thought it was I think it's his best performance. His sort of urgency, but it also was sort of funny. And I don't know, I just thought he was really good.
Yeah, he's still him. But yeah, I like how we're kind of in Burnham's point of view in the sense with him where that like he doesn't trust Burnham at first.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's kind of warmed up to her, and now they're friends, and now we're good with him. So now we're really getting to see Stamets. We're not seeing the kind of crusty exterior that we met in the first few episodes.
Yeah. Well, and I think he's become more confident in his relationship, more confident in just a lot of things in the last couple of episodes. Plus, he has the tardigrade in him, which has got to change you a little bit, I would think.
Yeah.
And he made that sort of bold step. And we get to find out that Mud, who we'd met in earlier episode, that he's back, and that this is all because of him. He has this time crystal, and that is allowing him to do this. And basically, like, his goal is to try and do the loop as many times as it takes for him to figure out what is special about the Discovery. And then he's going to try to take it, sell it to the Klingons.
Right. This is another classic Mud style scheme to make big bucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I thought Rainn Wilson was really good, entertaining, over the top. He even kind of had some like Khan feels, I thought, at times, with his just vibrato and the way that he was acting here. I thought kind of reminded me a little bit of that.
Oh yeah. I think he hit all the basic notes of a Star Trek villain pretty nicely, but not in a boring way. He kind of put it old yet new, sort of familiar. He actually was reminding me of Q a lot. Especially in that moment where he calls Lorca Mon Capitan, and where there's even a moment where like he takes them all to the transporter room, I think, or where he transports them, him and a handful of other people, off the bridge, and he waves his hand the way Q would, to sort of instantaneously transport people from A to B.
That's true. Yeah, he even kind of, I don't know. It felt almost like the modern movie Star Trek. The sort of the vibrato about it. That's. I guess I've been watching the original series, and there are some fun episodes, but a lot of them are very sort of science fiction kind of feel to them, and I don't know. It was just fun to sort of have this sort of over the top campy kind of element to it, which I really liked. And so yeah, I mean, this is quite the plan that he's put in place. Do you think that there's like a limit to how many times, or it will just be going indefinitely, the time loop?
I think he could do it indefinitely.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Or at least he thinks so. I'm not so sure that's actually the case, but yeah, that's what he thinks.
Well, and it does by the sort of where it's nearing the end, you can see that he's like tired and he's just kind of going through the motions where at first he's getting like all this glee out of like killing Lorca or killing people, you know, and he like pops out of that space whale or whatever it is. And but by the end you can see he's like, okay, I got to do this again.
Yeah.
Finally figures out how to convince Burnham that this is all going on by telling her that she's never been in love and teaching her to dance. So it's finally how he kind of tells her something that only he would know, and that kind of gets her on board and realizing what's happening.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's right.
So
And
they have a shortcut to intimacy there, because then
yeah,
there's a utilitarian reason for her to divulge one of her deep secrets to him, and then for him to repeat that back to her when she's not expecting it. And yeah.
right. And it just continues on the whole narrative of the scenes with Ash in the morning, you know, in the beginning of the loop, and it kind of makes everything tie together. And that's when they decide to tell Mud who Burnham is, and so that he will want to sell her. So he's going to stop looking for the ship, and he's going to change and want to sell her.
Well,
to
no, he'll want to do both, but they're trying to leverage him into one more loop.
Right. And that she eats the crystal, right?
That was pretty badass.
Yeah.
I liked how you could see it go down her esophagus and plop in her gut, and then from the inside. That was kind of nuts.
So does that? I was a little confused though. So does that stop the loop now that she's eaten it, or what did it do?
It forced him. It leveraged him into setting up another loop, so that because as far as he was concerned, he was done. He'd won, but they needed to leverage him into one more go around.
Because Lorca was dead at that point in that
loop. Maybe. But I know for sure that Ash Tyler was, and that's what Burnham was.
Right.
So she's trying to get him to pull that trigger one last time, and so she presented herself as a valuable asset, and then destroyed herself, forcing him to start the whole thing again.
Yeah, that was really, really, really good, and so that they are able to trick him, and they trick him into thinking that he is taking Stamets and Burnham to the Klingons, but instead they bring his ex-fiance or his
wife, his actual wife. Yeah.
Okay, I was a little confused on that, but anyway, this woman named Stella.
Yeah.
And her father. And so how did they even know? I guess did he say something about that in the prison?
Yes, he mentioned about getting back to his fair Stella, and like he talked about her very poetically and wistfully. And I knew who he was talking about, right? She appears in the episode I Mud in the original series, but in sort of a weird form. She's actually an android version of Stella.
Okay.
In that episode, but it's very clear from that she's kind of a battle axe as far as Mud is concerned, right? And she's what he's created is an android caricature of Stella, so she's kind of this bossy battle axe woman, and it's actually kind of a sexist thing. But
okay, I think is that the first time he appears?
No, that's the second episode.
Oh, okay, I've seen the first Mud episode, so yeah, interesting. And so they're able to, and that was a really funny scene. It was really good when Stella
and it was the perfect ending to a Mud episode where they leave him at the end of I Mud, they leave him stuck with the android Stella to be berated and harassed for the rest of his life, kind of thing. So
it's like, what are you what are you doing? And that it was just funny. You could see him being like, maybe the Klingon prison wasn't such a bad deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really good. I really enjoyed that. And then you get I think one final loop with one final scene in the trying to remember in the one final scene in the dance scene
Uh-huh.
and yeah. And I'm really excited to see where that goes between Ash and or I guess Tyler and Burnham. I think they have really good chemistry. I think that they I think that they'll be good for each other and make for really interesting characters to bounce off each other. And I really I do think that the Shazad Latif is his actor's name. He is very very handsome.
I can't dispute that. I'm not an authority, but
So I think it's nice to see him in this role, and I don't know. I just found this so entertaining. The dialogue was really good. It was very crisp. It was very entertaining. But you did get, like I said, moments of heart between Burnham and Ash and Stamets and all these different characters. And I thought they used music really well in the episode. And you got this cool version of Staying Alive, and just the score, everything kind of helped make it fun. And I don't know, just really, really enjoyed it.
yeah, no, I felt like the cast was a little more knitted together now.
Mm-hmm.
They're less just a group of people who happen to be on the same ship, and now they're kind of becoming friends, and yeah, that's all flowing nicely. One thing about the Ash Tyler Burnham romance that I think is interesting, well, and not actually just stuff in this episode generally that's interesting, is the way that it. Those of us who are at least scratching our chins about the possibility of Ash Tyler being a Klingon spy,
Oh.
possibly even Vok, the albino. Oh, there was some interesting stuff in this one. Like, on the one hand, you're going, "Oh no, he wouldn't enter into a relationship with Burnham as like, no, that's that's a bridge too far for a Klingon spy, don't you think?"
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, twice people commented, "Wow, you suffered a hell of a lot, and you're so even keeled. What's your secret?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you seem pretty okay for someone who's been through what you've been through. That's interesting." Like, that came up twice
Hmm.
from two different characters, and it had me going, "Yeah, what's up with that?"
Because he did have that. Well, it wasn't really a relationship, but he was
He was
in.
repeatedly raped by his captain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
by that Klingon. So maybe he could even be being manipulated in some way. But
yeah.
I hope not. That would make me sad. I like him so much. I hope that he's not a spy. I haven't heard that theory, so that's interesting.
Yeah, that's been kicking around, and the thing
Yeah.
is, like, the reason it's sort of that scans as a longtime fan, that scans for me because
Mm-hmm.
Klingon agents were an element in the original series. Like, that happened. You had Klingon agents posing as humans, and it had, like I said, it had that core. Like I've said before, it had that Cold War feeling about it, and having spies that look human, and for all you know, they are agents of the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
That smacks of the Cold War paranoia.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Okay. They do bring up a good point. The guy over at Forbes, he does say, he says, for the first time, I really enjoyed watching an episode of Star Trek Discovery from end to end. But then he says, only after it was over did I even have the afterthought, hey, I wonder what's going to happen to Admiral Cornwell. So that is sort of interesting that they completely just like dropped that for this episode. She's
Yeah,
yeah, I'm sure they're having like a party and stuff like that. Like a little weird.
right. Yeah. Well, he hasn't been ordered to go save her, so all right, on with our mission. On with
Yeah,
our
I
thing.
guess. Yeah, gotta stay loose, I guess. But it is kind of funny that you wouldn't think it would be the time to have a party, but hey, why not?
Well, you got to sometime. Well, and it seems like, well, the thing is, like, that kind of stuff it's a war, so they're gonna need to let their hair down sometimes, and you
Hmm.
do kind of. I actually like the way they played that. You see a wounded guy in a wheelchair. Um,
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
you see people who kind of have a shadow, like, even though it's fun and they're having a party, they still have kind of a shadow across their face, like, okay, I'm trying to forget how hard this all is, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, it does seem like that a bunch of people are kind of just trying to sort of force themselves to have fun in a way.
Uh-huh.
And then you have the characters like Tilly, who's like genuinely having fun.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
You'll see this in Deep Space Nine to some extent too.
mm,
You have similar kinds of setups where this is supposed to be fun, but oh yeah, well we just looked at the casualty list for this week and it sucks, and I
mhm.
lost friends, and you know.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right, well, great. Yeah, like I said, this is probably my favorite. I think this is going to be a lot of people's favorite of the season, but I've enjoyed most. I've enjoyed all of them in some level.
Yeah, indeed. I wouldn't say it's my favorite so far. Lethe was it for me,
That was really good too.
but no, I'm impressed with how consistent the consistency here. It is
Mhm.
consistently good week to week. Now,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, honestly, like, Trekkies, be honest with yourselves. Sit down and watch the first 7 episodes of TNG
Yeah.
and really ask yourself, was it really that good?
Well, and
As you went,
I,
and it got good, but you
yeah.
know,
Well, and I appreciate that you can say that because I do feel like that most of the hardcore fans that I've come in contact with are just so harsh on it, and I get it. Like I've said many times, I understand because I hated Maleficent. I hate when people touch stuff that I love. Like it's hard, and to be like super objective. I get it, but I just feel like saying it's like total and complete garbage. It's just that's harder for me to understand. Like if it's just not your thing, you're not digging it, no problem.
yeah.
I don't really
Uh-huh.
care. But it does surprise me that just the level of vitriol. So it does make me happy that most people, like I said, even Mr. Grumpy Pants over at Forbes, even he liked this one. Like I just feel like
Yeah.
I watched it. I'm like, how can anyone not like this? This is so fun.
Some people have
Uh,
got to be coming around by now,
yeah,
and honestly, like eventually, now you do have a handful of just uh, complete like wasters who are just they're subscribing to a network service they do not wish to pay for
yeah,
to watch a show they do not like, so they can rip on it.
right.
That is going to get old. Or they're ripping on a show they've never seen, and again,
Yeah.
that gets old.
It's
That's
funny because, yeah, like I wonder how many people that are playing that game will
uh-huh.
continue on to the second half of the season
Right.
because because like for instance, I hated the Anne with an E series that they did on Netflix.
Uh-huh.
It just wasn't for me. Didn't like it, but we had already kind of made a commitment to cover it. So me and my friend Amber, we covered the first season. We just did one podcast because we really just didn't like it. And but there's no way I'm covering season 2 or even watching it. So it's just not for me. And if other
And
people
there's going
like
to
it,
be a season 2.
yeah. It's like
Okay.
if other people like it, that's fine. But I just didn't like it. And so it'll be interesting to see if they continue on or if I don't know. Some people just like to complain, but I just think this show is visually stunning. I think the acting is always good. I don't think I've seen an episode where I thought, wow, the acting was poor. The acting's great, and for the most part, the writing's been really good. And I think this one is very well written. Dialogue is very good, and I get that some of the complaints as far as like it, particularly in Lethe, them you know bringing sort of Spock in and making some maybe canon changes or whatever, and how that can be hard. I can understand that and sympathize with that, but I don't know. I just feel like it's so cinematic. It's so you can just see the money on screen and how like they could have just done enough to get by kind of
Yeah.
with this series, but they clearly didn't, and they went above and beyond to make it cinema worthy, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
I've been thinking about this, that like if you take say a fan's top 20 episodes of all time across all the
Mhm.
series and put it next to this list of 7 episodes,
Mhm.
you'd want to fit all 7 somewhere in that top 20. Like
it's that good. Like
Mhm.
my expectations have been exceeded.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've been watching the original series, and I do really like the cage. I even though that was like the pilot that they didn't kind of use it, I thought that was so good, and I liked Mirror Mirror a lot, and I liked. So there's some episodes that I've really enjoyed, but I don't know. I guess that's just more. I can relate to it a little more because it's got more female characters, and it's just
Contemporary and
yeah. So I like this personally better. It's just more my jam, I guess. But I still, enjoy the other stuff for the most part. Anyway, so yeah, I really I feel like this is an important episode as far as bringing at least some people on board, which is exciting. And so we have 2 episodes left of this part of the season, and the next one is called Si vis pacem parabellum, which is Latin for something. I'm not sure what.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up.
Yeah, there you go. So that should be fun. And then the last one will be Into the Forest I Go. So the last one will be November 12th. And that will be exciting. So if any of you are listening, please put in the comments section your thoughts about this episode. What did you think? Did you like it? And and where can people find you?
My regular Twitter feed is at Elmano Roboto. You'll see my politics, mostly jokes, mostly light stuff, DC, Marvel, Star Trek, anything that interests me, Disneyland. If you follow my my feed at Happy Place Poems, you'll find verse inspired by Disneyland. I'm putting together a poetry collection, and I'm doling that out in samples on that feed. So check that out.
Yeah, that would be great. I'll have links for all that in the description section, and you can find me at Smiling LDS Girl on all social media, and you can follow Rachel's reviews on iTunes. So make sure to check that out. And thanks for joining me to talk about this. This was fun.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, we'll talk next week.